November 14th, 1865. Mr. James Lumley, an old Rocky Mountain trapper who has been stopping at the Everett house for several days, makes a most remarkable statement to us, and one which, if authenticated, will produce the greatest excitement in the scientific world. Mr. Lumley states that about the middle of last September, he was engaged in trapping on the mountains about 75 or 100 miles above the Great Falls of the Upper Missouri, and in the neighborhood of what is known as Candote Pass. Just after sunset one evening, he beheld a bright luminous body in the heavens, which was moving with great rapidity in an easterly direction. It was plainly visible for at least 5 seconds when it suddenly separated into particles, resembling, as Mr. Lumley describes it, the bursting of a sky rocket in the air. A few minutes later, he heard a heavy explosion, which jarred the earth very perceptibly, and this was shortly after followed by a rushing sound, like a tornado rushing through the forest. A strong wind sprung up about the same time, but suddenly subsided. The air was also filled with a peculiar odor of a sulphurous character. These incidents would have made but a light impression on the mind of Mr. Lumley, but for the fact that the ensuing day he discovered, at a distance of about 2 miles from his camping place, that so far as he could see in either direction, a path had been cut through the forest, several rods wide, giant trees uprooted or broken off near the ground, the tops of hills shaved off, and the earth plowed up in many places. Great and widespread havoc was everywhere visible. Following up this track of dissolution, he soon ascertained the cause of it in the shape of an immense stone that had been driven into the side of a mountain. Now comes the most remarkable part of the story. An examination of the stone, where so much of it was visible, showed that it had been divided into compartments, and that in various places it was carved with curious hieroglyphics. More than this, Mr. Lumley also discovered fragments of a substance resembling glass, and here and there dark stains, as though caused by a liquid. He was confident that the hieroglyphics were the work of human hands, and that the stone itself, although but a fragment of an immense body, must have been used for some purpose by animated beings. Strange as the story may appear, Mr. Lumley relates it with so much sincerity that we are forced to accept it as true. It is evident that the stone he discovered was a fragment of a meteor which was visible in this section in September last. It will be remembered that it was seen in Leavenworth, and Galena, and in this city by Colonel Newman. At Leavenworth, it was seen to separate in particles, or explode. Astronomers have long held that it is probable that the heavenly bodies are inhabited, or even the comets, and it may be that hereafter some future Columbus, from Mercury or Uranus, may land on this fine planet by means of a meteorite conveyance and take full possession thereof, as we did the Spanish navigators of the New World in 1492, and eventually drive what is known as the human race into a condition of the most abject servitude. It has always been a favorite theory with many that there must be a race superior to us, and this may, at some future time, be demonstrated in the way we have indicated. It's a pretty heavy ending for a meteor story. So, yeah, hieroglyphics in meteor, apparently.
My God.
Yeah, that was November 14th, 1865. Very cool.
Poor Charles Fort.
I know.
He's reading all these books. He's like, do you guys notice this? Is any of this weird to you guys?
He is confident that the hieroglyphics were the work of human hands.
I wonder if he means like mankind's hands.
Yeah, I don't know. Should ask him.
I did get into that. Do you remember what I messaged you a while back about how this was very speculative, but I was thinking about how Lou Elizondo made that "What does it mean to be human?" monologue, and I was thinking the term human and what it actually means. Like, how do we define human in this broad context of non-human intelligences, other humanoids, or what are these things? Our cousins? There's a lot of details that we don't
Hominins,
know.
yeah.
Hominins. And what was I about to say?
I don't know, but it sounded crazy.
It was. Oh, yeah, that's what it was. It was when they say recovering non-human craft or craft of non-human origin, things like that. I always wonder if that's something, if we did have an alliance with some humanoid group, if they were making legislation to protect about human tech. This sounds dumb even talking about it, but imagine if they had like our allies would be what's considered human, what we aspire to be, and what we are like eventually becoming if we reach that singularity point. Or there's non-human technology, which is things that are anti that idea, things that are anti-human, things that are negative towards us, things that are, if we were exposed to them, they would erode our idea of what it currently means to be human. Like, that's how I view both of those. And it could be that they may be like putting that into the language of legislation just because that broader philosophical debate may be waiting to happen.
I like that. It's a different way to think about it.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, I get it. It makes sense. All right. On that note, I think we got a good one. Do you have any final thoughts?
Oh, I just want to thank everyone for the continued support, especially on Blue Sky, which has been a super pleasant surprise. I don't know about you, but every time I open that app, I've been like blown away by how pleasant it's been. I haven't been
fucking put your armor on.
It's not just
ready to go to battle.
But it's not this thing though that like X. I'm still on X, but the thing with X is it's just gotten so bad to the point where they're starting to like worship politicians, and that's just disturbing to me. I don't care about which politician it is, but like the second we start pretending that these politicians are godlike figures, that is not a good recipe for success, especially on this topic. So I like the people on Blue Sky because I've noticed a very big independence swing where a lot more independents are on Blue Sky, and I've noticed it. I've noticed the research. I've noticed everything across the board has been better. And the only thing is I can't type as many characters. So I don't know when that's going to change.
Yeah. Hey, man. Yeah, I don't have anything. Thanks for everyone's support. And hopefully I didn't sound too miserable. And my voice was somewhat listenable. But yeah, that's all I got. Thanks everyone for listening. And we will see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
That's it for this episode of Patterns Tell Stories. If you enjoy the show and want to help us keep it going, you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/Patterns Tell Stories. Subscribers get ad-free versions of the show each week, along with longer extended versions and additional Patreon premium episodes. Patrons also get full access to the article archive on our website and have the option to join our Discord community. Separate from the website archive, you can find our individual blogs on Substack. Mine is at tinyklaus.com and Garrett's is at livingbird.substack.com. You can follow us on X as well. My account is at tinyklaus and Garrett is at livingbird. We appreciate what we do. Keep it going. Please leave a review on the major podcast platforms like Apple and Spotify, and let us know what you think. It also helps with the podcast algorithm, so hopefully our work can reach more people and we can continue to expand the conversation around the UFO topic. Thanks again so much for listening, and we'll see you all again soon.
Hearing about online threats every day can be stressful. McAfee Total Protection is here to help you live a worry-free life online. What does worry-free mean? You won't have to wonder if that text message is a scam, if new threats will pop up on your PC, or if you're safe from identity theft. Visit McAfee.com/online protection today to get up to 79% off award-winning online protection. Act fast. This Black Friday Cyber Monday deal won't last. Offer ends 12/4/24. That's McAfee.com/online protection. Cancel anytime. Terms apply.
Imagine being the first person to ever send a payment over the internet. New things can be scary, and crypto is no different. It's new, but like the internet, it's also revolutionary.
Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Kai Dickens, and you're listening to the Telepathy Tapes podcast.
My son said to me, I can Ammo. Objectives completed. Cartographer. Repeater. Exapod. Trigon. Ammo. Shield. Ammo. Shield. Ammo. Artifact. Ammo. Shield. Ammo. Shield. Shield. Exapod. Ammo. Bubble bomb. Hoplite. Repeater. Trigon. Repeater. Destination locked in. Ammo. Shield. Incoming. Ammo. 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 Artifact. Repeater. Shield. Shield. X ammo. Ammo. Repeater. Shield. Shield. Exopod incoming. Trigon. Shield. Shield. Repeater. Shield. Ammo. Shield. Trigon. Objectives completed. Repeater.
Good evening, everyone. You're in the right place at the right time. This is Coast to Coast AM, blasting out of the Mojave Desert like a Scirocco, blazing across the land, slamming into your radio like a supercharged nanoparticle of unobtainium. Greetings from the boldest, bawdiest, most outrageous city in the world, the planetary capital of sun, fun, sin, sex, and secrets. My not-so-humble hometown, Las Vegas, Nevada. My name is George Knapp, your occasional host, designated driver of the airwaves, and moderator of tonight's upcoming cacophonous cavalcade of conversation. Thanks for tuning in with us tonight. Here in the Southwest, we're in the monsoon season, which means broiling hot days. I mean hot. We had 10 straight days of temperatures well over 110. My thermometer indicated pockets around town that were 120 degrees. And man, that is really hot, even for those of us who think we like hot weather, or at least are able to tolerate it. And then all that heat tends to create these dramatic storms this time of the year. They strike mostly at night, powerful winds that rip trees to shreds. They send lawn furniture flying, downpours that turn into floodwaters, magnificent lightning displays, and bone-shaking thunder that follows. It's just wild. It's quite a sight to behold. I can't complain too much, I know. We did choose to live here. Just filling in a bit about what's been happening. Welcome to July. In the 2 weeks since I was here last, sitting in the big chair, the UAP Task Force report, the one prepared under the auspices of the Director of National Intelligence, was finally released. And for the most part, the UFO world was greatly disappointed. The UFO world would have been greatly disappointed, grumbling and banging their heads on tables and unleashing their inner Sam Kinison on Twitter and Facebook and other platforms. That reaction was likely inevitable, no matter what was in it. A few of us, you might recall, tried to dampen expectations a bit, dissuade anyone who expected anything like capital D disclosure. There was no way they're going to put out a report saying space aliens are here, or interdimensionals, or anything close to an answer to the really big question. What we got was a preliminary report, synopsis and summary of a very limited spectrum of UFO cases and encounters. This limited time frame, 2004 to the present, only cases involving the U.S. military, nothing at all from civilian cases, foreign governments, certainly nothing from civilian UFO groups who studied this for at least 74 years. No Roswell, no metamaterials, no Area 51, no abductions, no secret treaties with the Klingons or whoever. I share their disappointment. But this was pretty close to what I expected. Maybe it was less than expected, but not by much. I still see this as a net positive. In essence, to me, this report says two things. One, UFOs are real, and two, they're not out. They left some wiggle room in there in the language chosen carefully. It's a far cry from the days when we were force-fed swamp gas, downed weather balloons, lights bouncing off the shrimping fleet, or other preposterous excuses we've been asked to swallow over the decades. I think there were political considerations here, too. The people behind the scenes who really do want to see an ongoing program to investigate and study UAP incidents, they know that if they completely eliminate the chances that some UFOs could be foreign technology or even secret American technology, if they close that door entirely, it would mean that any member of Congress who votes to spend money on a new program, a new investigation, a permanent investigation, would essentially be voting for an alien hunt. If they were to say in the report that aliens or some kind are the only possible explanation, then members of Congress who vote for a subsequent program or investigation could be slammed the next time they run for office for spending money that essentially is a search for aliens. That's just how it would play out. So by doing it this way, I think the people who wrote that report and very carefully selected the language are giving a little bit of political cover to elected officials who've already kind of stuck their necks out by making public statements in support of full research and would stick them further out if they voted to spend some money on it. Anyway, that's my take. The report could have been so much better than what it is, but it is astonishing to me that it happened at all. And now our defense establishment is saying to the public what it's always expressed privately, behind closed doors, confidentially among themselves in classified reports and memos, especially those written back before the Freedom of Information Act existed or was even contemplated. Those early documents, that paper trail that you can all find online now, where generals and others in the military very candidly exchange views on what this could be. That's what's got me hooked on this subject in the first place, the paper trail. It took a very long time to get to this point where the DOD is willing to, somewhat reluctantly, tell the public part of what it has known for a long time. I've read so many reactions and opinions and articles since that UAP report was made public, and all the criticisms, many that are absolutely legit and justified, but there was one guy whose opinion I really wanted to hear, and that's Robert Hastings. Robert doesn't do a lot of interviews. We've been fortunate to have him join us here a couple of times over the years. You know, right now, as many of you probably know, there is considerable pushback from one corner of UFO world, the ones who spent years pushing this idea that any day now, we're going to be slammed with a false flag alien invasion. It's a Pentagon plot to fool us all so they can get hundreds of billions of dollars for new spending projects to protect Earth from space aliens. False flag, made up alien invasion. So when's that happening? I guess any day now. You know, any day. It could be right around the corner. Keep your eyes peeled. It's all a big trick because our alien space brethren are really friendly. They're cuddly even. And our alien friends can't wait to share their miraculous technology with us. They can't wait. They want to be pals. A few people say they know this for sure. No question whatsoever. And for just a couple of bucks, or maybe a lot of bucks, they'll tell you all about it. In this day and age, you know, it seems like everything's a false flag, right? A ruse, a trick, a distraction, mass murders staged by crisis actors, horrific school shootings, all staged, the pandemic, the election, nothing is what it appears to be, so don't be fooled by your own eyes and ears. It's not a surprise to see false flag warnings erupt in UFO world where for as long as I've been around it, any new witness, any new evidence, or video, or photo, or document, that's all disinformation. It's spread by the evil cabal. I swear, they must need 5 or 6 floors at the Pentagon devoted just to false flag and misinformation operations. And now we see a fresh new round of this being pushed by the same people who've been warning us that it's right around the corner. It's imminent, any day now, any hour, could happen tonight during this program. The reason I wanted to hear from Robert Hastings is that he literally wrote the book on why UFOs should be considered a matter of national security. Doesn't mean they are laser beaming our cities or infecting us with the black oil goo from the X-Files, but is this a potential national security concern? Hastings says yes, and he points to the eerie, persistent connection between UFOs and nukes. Hundreds of eyewitnesses, all of them military witnesses, plenty of documents, have confirmed these chilling incidents here and elsewhere around the world. That issue, all those cases, were left out of this task force report. Not even a whisper about it. Why not? In just a moment, the guy who has spent more time working on UFOs and nukes, that scenario, than anyone, Robert Hastings, joins me. Then in the second half, we broaden the scope of our conversation, and yes, there are UFOs that pop up in the research of Paul Sinclair, but his investigation has a wider scope. It includes paranormal events, cryptid creatures, many shapes and sizes, weird animals, giant things that seem to defy our understanding of nature, that simply don't belong here. Paul was my guest about a year ago and spoke about some of the eerie similarities between his research in Yorkshire and what's been reported closer to us at Skinwalker Ranch and a few other U.S. paranormal hotspots. You know, we're way past time for an update from Paul Sinclair, so he joins us from the UK 2 hours from now. Webmaster Lex Lonehood and I have pulled together our usual assortment of items and oddities culled from media sources around the world. We call it Naps News. You can find it on the Coast to Coast AM website. Among the stories there tonight, one about a UFO stigma, how it's stifled an open and honest inquiry. Got an update about Mars from the Curiosity rover, problems that have popped up in the ongoing search for signs of ancient Martian life forms. I have a cool profile of Wally Funk, who's about to fly into space with Jeff Bezos 60 years after she passed her test to be an astronaut. And there's an interesting piece about how aliens might be trying to find us, what methods they might use. Those stories and more in Naps News. And while you're there on the website, check out how to become a Coast Insider. The cost is 15 cents a day or thereabouts. If you subscribe for a year, it gives you access to this huge archive of programs and interviews, including the Art Bell Vault. Good stuff in there for sure. And you can listen anytime, as often as you want. It's a great deal. So is the chance to subscribe to George Norrie's television program, Beyond Belief, where George interviews fascinating people similar to what he does here on the radio. With that, let's assume the position. Bring in the dog and the cat and the goat and the desert tortoise. Put on a pot of joe, slide your bod into those silky summer jammies and your toes into the fluffy bunny slippers. Plop yourself down in a comfy spot, turn down the lights, and turn up the radio because we're about ready to rumble. In a moment, Robert Hastings, UFOs and nukes, the evidence. I'm George Knapp. This is Coast to Coast AM. Robert Hastings is the leading civilian investigator of UFO activity at nuclear weapons sites. He's utilized hundreds of declassified U.S. government documents and the testimony of more than 167 U.S. military veterans he's interviewed since 1973, trying to get his head around this very complicated, very dramatic, and important issue. Robert, welcome back to Coast.
Thank you, George.
I want to jump right into the UAP task force, this report that came out from the DNI. Get your initial reaction. Did you have grand expectations, or did you figure it was going to be kind of a cautious report?
It's about what I expected it to be, and I agree with virtually everything you said as to why it is what it turned out to be. I think consideration was given to the fact that Congress would have to either become more interested or less interested in the subject based on this preliminary report. And if it got too wild and woolly at the outset, a lot of people would be scared off right at the outset. I think in my estimate, whether I'm correct or not, there's a go slow, but definitely going in the right direction kind of strategy going on. I mean, all of us, anyone who certainly is my age, 71, or even much younger, if you've looked at what the government has said on the subject across the board for decades now, it's been the same old denial and obfuscation. And it's only been since 2017, the big breakthrough, I guess, was the New York Times article by Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal, and basically introducing ATIP to the world, and Lou Elizondo and Senator Harry Reid and all of that. I mean, that's just a major departure from anything that's come before. And if you look at what Lou and Senator Reid and certainly Christopher Mellon, who was in the Defense Department very high up for many years, are saying now, even though it's somewhat guarded in its presentation, they're saying things that have never been said before anywhere by any public official in the United States, including, as I hopefully will discuss, Lou Elizondo in particular and Senator Reid have repeatedly said UFOs have interfered with our nuclear weapons. No one has heard that from a former government official at any point previously that I'm aware of. So, that in itself is remarkable. So I think this is an incremental situation. I think disclosure is a process, not a single event. And this hopefully is going to be the first of many such incremental developments.
I know that Senator Reid specifically has read your book, UFOs and Nukes. I believe that Elizondo has. I know for sure that Chris Mellon has, because he's bragged about it. It should be on everyone's bookshelf. That's got to feel pretty good.
It does. I've devoted, I'm losing track of time, but I started interviewing military veterans in 1973. My father was career Air Force, and he was at Malmstrom Air Force Base, a missile base, in the late 60s. And long story short, he was aware, and peripherally, I was aware of UFO activity at missile sites. He worked in a radar facility, and there was just rampant rumors about these unknown craft flying around the missiles, and word filtered that down to me about that. Coincidentally, even though I was a junior in high school, I worked 3 nights a week at the base air traffic control tower as a janitor, just pushed a broom and emptied trash cans. But over the course of several months, I developed a relationship with an FAA supervisor. There were FAA and Air Force controllers at the tower, and this gentleman was kind enough to tutor me on radar theory during his work breaks. I was very interested in all of that. And in one night in March of '67, I was just walking through RAPCON, Radar Approach Control, and emptying trash cans, and he motioned me over to his scope and said something to the effect, we're tracking UFOs or unknown targets, words to that effect. And I kind of got excited and began peppering him with questions, and his whole manner changed instantly. I think he was aware that I was drawing attention to us, and he just said, come back and clean up later. And when I did, he didn't want to talk about it. I tried one more time to get him to talk about what he was telling me, and he didn't want to go there. But I knew something was going on, and what we now know from FOIA document releases and testimony by military veterans is that what I witnessed was indeed something that's ongoing. UFOs have repeatedly flown around American nuclear missile sites, and on several occasions have shut down the missiles. The missiles have malfunctioned, and fortunately, even Senator Reid and Lou Elizondo have said that our missiles have been, quote, disabled by UFOs.
This report is only 9 pages, really only 6 pages, 2 appendices, pages, and 1 cover page, so 6 pages. Nothing whatsoever about UFOs and news. They kind of dance around very vague language about whether or not this is a matter for national security. When you're sitting at home reading that report, you know there's an 800-pound alien gorilla in the room that got no attention whatsoever. Did you figure that they were going to skip that? It's too much to put in this report? Or did you hope that maybe that had mentioned?
I told several friends, you're not going to see any reference to the nuclear weapons cases in the report. That was not in the cards. I knew you weren't going to see anything relating to the abduction phenomenon, or alleged abduction phenomenon, if you wish. I knew this would be something far less than any of those things. And at one point, I believe 6 or 8 weeks prior to the release of the report, Lou Elizondo had apparently gotten wind of what was going to be in it to some degree, and he called it, quote, underwhelming. So I figured that's where we were going. But the reason I'm doing this interview tonight, this is the first interview I've done in about a year and a half. I've not been in good health, and I've turned down several requests. But it's, even though I'm gratified that there's something more realistic being spoken by our government officials about the UFO phenomenon, they're acknowledging it's real. These are exotic craft that have an unknown origin at this point. At the same time, I feel, even though I'm happy that much has been admitted, that we have to keep pushing. I have to keep pushing. People who have information that warrants public attention have to keep pushing. And I think I've pretty much passed my usefulness to all of this. So other people are going to have to jump in and investigate the nuclear weapons cases and many other aspects of the phenomenon. But if we ever want to get to that point where we have a full disclosure, not only for Americans but the entire humankind, we've got to all keep pushing, because we're a long way from that day at this point.
The time frame for this report, 2004 to 2021, 2004 being, almost certainly starts with the Tic Tac incident. This is a nuclear carrier group, the Nimitz carrier group, and I don't know if you would make an assumption about whether or not that has something to do with the proximity of the Tic Tac. What's your guess?
Conceivably, certainly, given the history of the nuclear weapons-related cases. What a lot of people overlook, I've seen a number of journalists mention the fact that the carriers do have nuclear systems, but what is not mentioned, simply because the government never confirms or denies the presence of nuclear weapons in any given locale, but historically, aircraft carriers carry nuclear weapons, which are going to be loaded onto aircraft in case of war. That's been historically true. I think there's a very good chance that the Nimitz and Teddy Roosevelt, which were the two carriers, probably have nuclear weapons on board. So that's another element that figures into the overall equation.
We've heard some rumblings recently about whether you can test this hypothesis that whatever these things are, that they follow nuclear weapons wherever they go. There was a report out of Russia where they've done some sort of experimentation. I don't know if that's reliable information or not, but when we come back, we're going to talk about whether or not we've done experimentation like that to see if, in fact, send something out and whether or not something will follow. I'll ask you your opinion on that. Then we're going to get into some of the incidents that may have happened that would fit into that 04 to 21 time frame. We're talking with Robert Hastings about UFOs and nukes. We're talking with one of the best, most respected UFO investigators in the world, Robert Hastings, who's specialized in looking at the connection, seeming connection between UFOs and nukes. What is their interest in our nuclear weapons? Why do they show up year after year, decade after decade at nuclear weapons facilities and bases? Is that a matter for national security? We're going to get into that and more right after this on Coast to Coast AM. Robert, let's jump into the heart of this. You've seen the chatter about our alien space brethren, our friends. We really should welcome them with open arms. This is not a threat of any kind. It's being presented as some sort of false flag scenario to milk billions out of the Pentagon. It's really not a national security matter. What's your take on it?
I agree with you. It's fanciful in my view. I think persons like Senator Reid and Lou Elizondo are going to be in the history books, and their detractors, the people who are claiming these false flag operations and all the other claptrap, are going to be footnotes, if that, and very silly, if not derogatory footnotes in history. So time will shake it all out. Unfortunately, there are people in this world who will believe that scenario, and what are you going to do?
Well, I mean, we don't have them wiping out our cities. Whoever they are, they're not attacking us and using laser beams to kill New Yorkers and things of that sort. So even though they are over nuclear weapons facilities, what's your argument that they are a matter of national security? They haven't stolen our nukes. They haven't blown up our nukes, right?
Well, I've always, I think anytime we've talked about this, anytime that I've written in my book or articles to express my take on the overview, I've always said, you know, this is a complex situation. I think it's legitimate to say that there are obvious national security related issues involving with our missiles being shut down or even activated, as we may talk about later on. At the same time, I have always said that, is that really a bad thing? You know, I don't expect the militaries of the world to be terribly thrilled by unknown forces monkeying around with their weapons of mass destruction. And in the context of the Cold War, they could legitimately say, look, as long as the Russians had them, we had to have them. And, you know, the argument is being made that if we didn't have them, we would have been nuked here in America a long time ago, Western Europe. So I think all of those are perhaps valid arguments. But ultimately, my view is that humankind has to get rid of nuclear weapons sooner or later, preferably sooner. And if you look at all of the mistakes, misread signals, computer foul-ups, any number of errors that almost brought us to the world to the brink of nuclear war. I mean, the data are out there. Both the U.S. and the Russian government have, over the last 20 years, acknowledged there were several close calls due to the kinds of things I just mentioned. Well, if you don't have the weapons, then you don't have to worry about them being mistakenly used. So ultimately, humankind has to get rid of these things.
You know, I remember from your book, UFOs and Nukes, you have a section about the Cuban Missile Crisis, how close we came to a terrible miscalculation right there. There were parts of this that we did not know for until decades later, separate from the UAP information, which you can address as well. You know, we nearly made a really terrible mistake there that probably would have ended life on our planet.
Well, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, as students of history may know, were really pushing for an invasion of Cuba, and it was well known from YouTube photographs that there were medium-range, high megaton weapons that were being launched or put on launchers by the Soviets. That was well established. What was not known at the time, apparently, was and I've read different figures. One figure was a dozen, another figure was 90 battlefield nukes that the local Soviet commanders did not need approval from Moscow to fire. And if we indeed had followed the Joint Chiefs of Staff recommendation and invaded Cuba instead of having a blockade as President Kennedy ended up proposing, no doubt those local Soviet commanders would have launched those tactical nukes against our invading forces on the beaches in Cuba. I mean, a very high probability. It's almost certain that if that had happened, it would have escalated into a full-scale nuclear war. So, you know, even our intelligence community and the military did not know the full picture at the time. And thank God there was no American invasion of Cuban territory because of that situation.
Let's talk about the arguments that you make, evidence you became witnesses you've spoken to about these very dramatic incidents. I want to start with something fairly recent, something that would fall into the 2004 to 2021 time frame if somebody had wanted to include it, would have fitted it. You have an example of something that happened in 2010. Can you describe that one?
Yeah, this was quite dramatic. Of course, we aren't getting any official acknowledgement from the Air Force, but what we know is this. On October 23rd and into October 24th of 2010, at F.E. Warren Air Force Base, over a period of what the Air Force says was 59 minutes, my sources say over a period of 26 hours, and these were missile maintenance personnel who actually went out and addressed the problem. 50 missiles were unavailable for use or could not have been launched by the local launch facilities, which the Air Force now calls missile alert facilities. The Air Force says they won't admit to this 26-hour period, even though my inside sources who were in the field trying to bring the weapons back online say that's precisely what occurred over 26 hours. These 5 missile alert facilities controlling 50 ICBMs were having problems that they were baffled about. And what became known as these technicians went out into field to correct the issues was that there was a huge, apparently aircraft carrier-sized, cylinder-shaped object flying around the skies when this was all going on, not only in the middle of the night, but the following morning around these particular, the missile field in general, but clearly it was occurring. This object was present and being observed by multiple field teams in the field when the missiles were unavailable for launching by the local commanders. Clearly a UFO link, I mean, no question. So that went on in October of 2010. As you mentioned, that did fall within the period that was covered